And at least in 3 of those cases from within the same company. So, which is somebody more junior got promoted. Right? And yeah, so I think that and I think a lot of the first couple of years were about getting to I remember my first CEO meeting. In fact, Robert, who's been with Howard, whom you met earlier, who's been with me from day one of the journey, he and I talk about this a lot even now. We finished our first meeting with saying we want to grow, and the CEOs at that point said, do you want to grow revenue or profit? So our point then was profit, because you can always grow revenue. So we talked about what growth, and they said, look, maybe 0.5%, and we finished up saying, okay, let's strive for 1%, and we will close this year growing at 3.5%, and the last quarter growing at 6%. Now that's, I think, fundamentally mindsets have changed, and what's acceptable, the definition of what is acceptable has changed. And I think that's to do with the new people. It is to do with being fortunate enough to have people like Robert with me on the journey, who did keep pushing on what is the bar. But so I think it's a combination of challenging that mindset and freeing up people who had real depth, because I think the reason we've unlocked value is we've had better people in the value hotspots. Right? I don't think it's a lot more sophisticated than that.
No, but it's an interesting question, I think, which is fairly quickly after you joined, you were actually able to select out of the staff that was there 6 people that you felt were going to be better CEOs than the ones that were already there for each of those countries. So you are a very experienced leader, but so it's always interesting to sort of hear, and for our students too, if we can put some of it in the case. How did you find these people? How do you assess the capability of someone to be a CEO for the positions that you were looking for?
Look, I think I think time and luck are probably the two interesting ones for me. I'll start with time. So when I first joined, I spent my first 90 days, I spent 5 days in Bonn, 85 days in the country. And this was not a visit where someone presented to me, it was a day with the person. And we would, and because I have done their jobs, and this is not meant to sound arrogant, but I have done their jobs, so I kind of have a sense for what good looks like in their jobs. This is a bit of what I mean by, you want people who knows what good looks like in the value hotspot. You don't need them everywhere, so you don't necessarily need someone who knows what good is like on real estate management. Maybe you need that if you're running WeWork, and God knows they need that. But if you're running a telco, you need someone who can sniff a good CTO versus a bad one in a day. If you can't, you have a real problem, right? Because you want to spend that day eating lunch with them, talking to them, talking about everything from spectral efficiency to cost of covering a home, to how do they move. It's a day, and it's not an interview. It's a day spent getting to know them. And maybe in some cases it took me 3 days getting to know someone, but it's to me also picking the CEOs who were excellent at the value hotspots, because there were many who were excellent at other things. That's the ones who left were not disasters, or they were not like they were really, some of them were really good. It's just what they were good at was relevant at another time and another place.
Well, that's important.
Right, and were not relevant to what they were very good at. I mean, if you have to pick a common theme, a lot of them were very good chairmen of companies who, in the post-liberalization, because in a lot of these cases we bought these companies from the state, they did a fabulous job of managing those relationships, of managing complex liberalization processes, and we wouldn't be here without them with these assets. But they weren't the right people to lead a operational transformation, which is what we needed.
That's very helpful, actually. Yeah. So you have to be able to figure out what are these special spots of value.
Yes.
That's your job first, and then find out who would be the people that.
Absolutely. And then, as we're talking now, I think our value hotspots are changing completely, and the fact a good part of what I'm going to spend tomorrow evening, the day after evening, with what I spent most of December doing with my CEOs was talking and working together on where those value hotspots were changing, and therefore what we need in the next 3 to 5 years. Because my articulation is we're growing, but we're not sustainable. We're growing because we've got our basic game sorted, but we're not yet differentiated. We're not yet a bunch of things, but yes, and I think those hotspots are changing in my mind, and therefore the skills we need will change, and the way we structure will have to change.
Yeah. Right. So.
Sorry, that's a lot.
No, but it's very. No, so what we're talking with Robert here, the way that I was trying to frame it and see how that resonates with you, then is that, well, in each of these countries we've tried to arrive at a steady state, which is a growth of maybe 1.5%, costs down for 1%, EBITDA up 3% roughly. That's a steady state. It's not bad if you can manage that. But then the question was, well, is it sustainable? And so if it's not, then we have to transform ourselves. And so then the question was, what is the nature of that transformation? And so is that roughly?
That's totally where we are right now, which is, I think we are in a steady state of of our business growing roughly a GDP growth rate.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's sustainable at all today, because at the core of what is not sustainable for me is our customer and employee experience aren't where they should be.
Where it should be.
Aren't where they should be. And therefore, what we have built on is not very solid, because in a highly regulated industry like ours, if your customer experience is not outstanding, someone's going to get you. Whether it's the regulator, whether it's the politician, whether it's the consumer bodies, in a highly visible, system-relevant business like ours. So we give you some sense of what I mean by that. We are 2.6% of the Croatian GDP.
Sorry, what was that?
2.6.
Right? We're about 3% of the Greek GDP. Now, when you're a company of that size, scale, and impact, you touch everyone's lives.
Yeah.
And when you're not flawless when your experience is not outstanding, when the way you're organized internally and the way you do business is not frictionless and not highly efficient but highly motivating, when you're not able to attract this whole debate started off with kind of 3 questions in my mind, right? Which is how I define not sustainable. And we did this last January when I asked all of my leaders 3 questions, which is, how often do you go out for dinner worried that someone you meet is going to complain about the experience? Right? And unanimously everyone's hands went up. Right? Second one was, how often do you wake up in the morning worried about the press or the regulator saying nasty things about you?